Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to The Disturbing Truth. Every Muslim who's read the Quran has read Surah Al-Kahf. And in that surah, we find the story of the righteous servant that Moses meets. And the Qa'im Aba Al-Sadiq, from his peace, has spoken about the story multiple times to draw lessons from it. But recently, he spoke about the story in a different light, and he revealed something huge. You can find this video in on the website, on the YouTube channel. The Mahdi has appeared, where he goes into this topic, and today we will be discussing this topic. So, it's an interesting story that he gives us.
This is a huge sign.
Yeah.
This is a huge sign for the believers. This is a huge sign for anyone who comes across this religion. And it's such a fascinating episode that I wanted to tell the viewers that it's a spoiler. This would be a spoiler for you, and that we urge you to check it out. And we're going to summarize and go through the episode for sure, but discuss it. So, but for sure, I would advise that people watch it from Father himself.
When he tells it, it's so magical.
Yes, it's different when you hear it firsthand from him. But yeah, so there are actually many hadiths out there when the Mahdi rises that he will come forth and he'll complete the intellect of his companions by this very famous hadith where he places his hand over their heads and he'll complete their intellect, meaning he'll give knowledge. And in this hadith in particular, it actually says that there is actually a great sign within it that the Mahdi will come forth and tell the true meaning and interpretation of the Quranic chapters. So people can check this hadiths out. They're in Al-Kahf. They're in many narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And another one of Imam Ali, he says that one of these great signs of the Mahdi is that when he comes forth, he will come forth with the knowledgeable vision of Surah Al-Kahf, the chapter of the cave. He'll know its true meaning. Why? Because Surah Al-Kahf, it's known that, it's the story of Moses and the righteous servant. What makes this story very special is that it's actually nowhere to be found in the Bible or Torah. I was draws our attention firstly to that. It seems to be what's the word? It's exclusive. It's exclusive for the Quran, and it's even though you can find so many other stories in the Torah and the Bible. For example, Moses meeting Pharaoh, Moses, his mother placing him in the basket. You'll find that in the Torah and the Bible,
which is interesting because the Torah is all about that, right? It's all about Moses and all of his stories.
The whole thing.
So
why would they miss such a very key, such a really magical, and to be honest, it's quite a disturbing story. Let's be fair. The righteous servant stories, if you really read it and Muslims know about it, it can be quite disturbing when it comes to the obedience to God. So, but this story is only found in the Quran. So I was he goes through the story. And this story has left many people confused since the Quran has come down. So many people are confused. So it takes place, obviously, when Moses meets this servant. But before we get into it, the Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, there are narrations. Abu Sadiq uses. This is what's amazing with Abu Sadiq, and it proof that he is the Mahdi. The Mahdi comes forth with knowledge that is already scattered on the earth, right? Many stuff that's hidden from people, but many stuff that is upon the earth. So he brings it forth, and he backs it up with actual evidence. And he has called us that we are the companions of the evidence.
Yes.
We don't go forth without the evidence and logic. And he backs it with the narrations of the Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And one of the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad state that the story of Al-Khidr, the righteous servant story, it takes place after the splitting of the sea. So now he already has the Bani Israel under him. He's crossed the sea. He's done that great miracle. The 10 Commandments have come down. He's took them, and now he feels is there anyone more intelligent than me? I've done
so much.
I've done so much, and it's amazing. And it's in that moment when Moses thought that to himself. In that moment, God inspires Gabriel, saying, that go Gabriel, Moses has destroyed himself. So Gabriel goes down and tells Moses, your Lord has said that you have destroyed yourself because of this thought that just crossed his heart.
Because this is so dangerous if you think about it. It's arrogance, right? It's a form of arrogance, and that's something we have to be careful from because Iblis, he was arrogant, right? And look what happened to him. So at this point, he's arrogant, and God has to do something about it, right?
And God does do something about it. He goes and gives him a mission. He says, Moses, through Gabriel, Gabriel tells Moses, God wants you to go out to the land and bring someone that you believe or is better than you, and come forth and meet your Lord at a specific place and present it to him.
That Moses is better than it.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So Moses is given this mission. He has this thought that crosses his heart that he's the best of all the creation, like he's the prophet of God, and God is so angry with him. He gives him this message. So he's panicking basically that he's angered God. So he's with all of his companions, with all his followers, and he goes throughout his camp, trying to find someone who he can say that he's better than. He can be sure basically that he's better than, right? And he goes and he looks at people and he says, this person's done such and such a sin, but then he thinks, okay, well, I've done this, I've had this thought and I've angered God, so I can't really say that they're better than me. I can't really say, sorry, that I'm better than them. And then, eventually the sun's going down and he's still in the camp looking for people, and he sees this diseased dog wandering through the camp.
Yeah.
So he's okay, maybe I can say that I'm better than this diseased dog. So he basically puts a leash on the dog, starts taking it up to the place where he's arranged to meet God. And then as he's on his way there, he basically panics and he's can I actually say for sure that I'm better than this dog? Because, although this is a diseased dog, it hasn't committed this act that I've done of angering God in this way. So he actually, he lets the dog go free and he goes to meet he goes to meet God alone, and God basically asks him, why didn't you bring anyone as I commanded you? And Moses responds and he says, I have not found a single creature on the face of the earth that I am better than. And God, responds back and tells him, if you had brought back anybody, or if you brought back with you even that diseased dog, I would have erased your name from the list of prophets and messengers, and you would have been destroyed.
This is what makes Moses, his action was different than what Iblis did. Iblis, he stayed arrogant, but Moses realized,
he's
I can't
he
do
realized
this.
he's done something wrong and he's repenting from it, basically.
Exactly.
So Moses, he kind of passed the first test because he doesn't bring any creature. He realizes that actually he can't say that he's better than anyone, even a diseased dog. But basically God is not done with disciplining him and teaching him the lessons that he wants to teach him.
Yeah. So to really destroy the ego of Moses that arose in his heart, he actually Allah sends him to on another mission. He says, go meet this righteous servant of mine who is more knowledgeable than you. So Moses, God commands him to go meet him at the junction of the two seas. So Moses, he's so excited, he's so determined, he wants, he even vows, swears that he will meet this righteous servant even until death, even if he dies. So he takes a youth with him, as God commands, and he goes to meet this righteous servant. And they actually, for lunch, they take a fish with them. So they're walking along the sea. And they decide to take a break, to take a nap. So they leave this fish, and this fish actually, it actually manages to escape and to go back in the sea. Yeah, exactly. So then they wake up and they don't notice, so they just keep walking. And then when they stop for lunch, they realize, and the youth actually, he says, Satan made me forget about this fish, so they realize, Moses realizes that they lost the fish, so he decides to go back to the place where they took a nap and lost the fish. And then when they get there, Moses realizes something. He realizes that the spot where they lost the fish, that was the spot that they were supposed to meet the righteous servants. So this fish, it escaped and it reached the destination before he even did. So he makes this realization that God was teaching him a lesson, that this is like more of a lesson, that you cannot absolutely think yourself to be better than anything, no matter what shape it is, what it is, you know. So Moses makes this realization, and this fish is actually, he realizes that this fish was more obedient to God than even he was.
But the way Aba Al-Sadiq says that, though, it's like, it makes you realize, wow, like that really hits you, because it's like this creature, this thing that was going to just be food, it was just his dinner. My dinner is more obedient to God, let alone another person or a diseased dog. My dinner is more obedient to God. You see, if that really sinks in, it makes you realize, wow, just you have to be really careful, because God can really teach you lessons, and he's an Ulul Azm prophet, you know, guys.
And this is what it's called to be humble,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
When you look at other creature and you're thinking, wow, this is better than me, like whatever it could be, right? And so it's
insane. I just can't get over it. I'm sorry, but it's just like my dinner is better than me. Wow.
There's even this example of a rock being even better than you, because why this you can go into it, and there's so many explanations, but it is actually
an example.
You are in awe when you think about it, really. And if we go back to the story, what happens? Moses goes back to the spot where the fish escaped, and he meets a man there, and there's a conversation between Moses and this man. And so at this point, the man is the righteous servant, and he's hesitant to allow Moses to accompany him. So he says, like, you're not going to be able to handle this if you come with me. And so Moses is like, no, I promise you I will. And if I object, you can dismiss me. So just give me this chance, basically. So the righteous servant's like, okay, I accept. Come with me. But if you're going to come with me, you have to follow certain conditions I'm going to put now on you. And so he says, if you accompany me, you have to be patient. Okay? Whatever you see, you cannot question it. You just follow me until I decide to reveal it to you. Okay? And so Moses like, okay, let's do this. They agree on it. They shake hands and they proceed. They start on their journey. And now it starts with a story of 3 stations that they go to. This is mentioned in the Quran, right? So the first station they go to, they see a poor people, and these poor people are on this ship. And so these people allow the righteous servant and Moses to board the ship, right? And they go up there, and the righteous servant decides to go down to the bottom of the ship in the bottom floor, and Moses starts seeing the righteous servant doing something that he finds disturbing. And he starts to make a hole in the bottom, right? In the lower deck. And Moses, he objects directly. He's like, hold on, what are you doing? Why are you making this hole? Are you doing it in order to drown those people? You certainly done something really bad. And so the righteous servant tells him, did I not tell you not to speak a word? And so Moses realizes it, and he stays quiet. And they continue on the journey. In this point in the Quran, it doesn't mention any details. It doesn't state what happened to the ship. It doesn't say it drowned. It doesn't say that the water filled up the ship. It doesn't mention anything. And it doesn't mention if the righteous servant and Moses were affected by this, the whole, you know, if it filled up with water and they were drowned, were they affected? It doesn't mention it. Were they had to forcefully swim out? It doesn't mention it. So the question becomes, this is like Aba Al-Sadiq highlights this point. He wants people to think about it. He wants the viewers to think about it. He says, why did Moses say, are you trying to make these people drown? Why didn't he say drown us? Right? So this is just like
highlights as if like somehow how are they safe? Why is he so confident that it's nothing to do with him?
This to me indicates that there's something to the story, right? There's more to it.
But people don't look that deep though. That's the thing, you know, with Abu Sadiq. He comes and he always will highlight things, and he'll always bring your attention to parts of the stories of the past prophets and messengers in a way that only someone who is sent by the author of these books.
I think also, you know, people are just so used to not having any like satisfactory, valid explanations provided when they question things like this by the religious scholars and by the religious leaders. You know, the only person who can truly explain like some sort of like, you know, weird thing that appears like this that makes you question it, like is the man who's appointed by God, is the man who has that Holy Spirit. Otherwise, you know, it's people just guessing, and when someone's just guessing an answer, you can tell it doesn't sit right.
What doesn't mean anything. You can guess as much as you want. It's not gonna like tell the truth.
It doesn't satisfy you really. So then that was the first station you mentioned, and then there's this second station where it involves a boy. People know about this one. This is what disturbs a lot of people about the story of the righteous servant. And there's Moses and the righteous servant, they find this young boy, this youth. It says youth, that he's playing, right? It's not really a young boy. It says a youth, and he's playing. So the righteous servant, what does he do? He takes him and he kills him in front of Moses. Moses obviously is horrified. He freaks out. He panics. He's like, what just happened? He goes up to the righteous servant. He forgets his promise to him. He forgets who the righteous servant is sent by, because you know when you have that emotions, you forget your Imam. So then he goes up to him and he goes to him, did you kill a self that has no sin? So the righteous servant says to him, I'm paraphrasing, that I told you that you won't be able to handle it. Like I told you won't be patient with me. Basically. So obviously, again, Moses, he's realized, oh no, I made a mistake. I questioned him. I did exactly what he told me that I was probably going to do, and I told him I'm not going to do it, but I ended up doing it. So yeah, my bad. Please, I'm sorry. Please, let's do it again. And he repents. So then what happens? So the righteous servant takes his repentance and takes him to the final station. In this final station is that they come to a city, a big city. And they travel into the city, and they realize that the city, they're very unrighteous and they're very bad hosts. Like they're not kind to travelers. So they decide to obviously leave. So before they leave the city, they come across this huge wall, and like this wall has cracks on it, right? So Moses notices that the righteous servant, he just, instead of leaving the city, he just begins like, you know, fixing the cracks and constructing the wall basically. And he's like making the wall firm again. And he's just so confused. He's like, why is he doing this? So he fixes the wall, and then he's like, okay, let's go. And then he's like, are we just leaving like that? And you fixed a huge wall and we're just leaving like that? What about payment? Why don't you ask these unrighteous people for payment? It's not like they did anything for us, and you asked nothing in return for fixing their wall. So then the righteous servant, basically he makes this mistake again, right, of questioning him. So the righteous servant's like, I'm done with you. He didn't exactly say those words, but he practically
That's what he meant.
Really. So he's like, I think it's over. Your journey ends here. I was like, oh no. That was, again,
exactly
that was something I should have done actually. And because you see, Moses, they were traveling, they were hungry, and he was like, why didn't you ask for payment? We could have got food, you know?
Because they were treating them so bad. He's like, at least take some money, right?
So the righteous servant, he's like, oh God, man, this guy, he's obviously not paying attention to me, and let me just tell him why I did all what I did. So he starts going through the stations and he explains to him the wisdom behind why he did what he did. And the first station you mentioned, it was the ship, right? So the story in the Quran, we're talking about the Quran, the story in the Quran specifically, it goes as follows, that it's talking about that the ship, right, these were poor people. There was a very tyrannical king on its way towards the ship, and he was, I think, looking around, and he was going to seize ships. So he thought, I'm going to do them a favor. Let me make a hole in the ship, make it look like it's destroyed, and this is useless to him. So he won't seize them and capture these poor people. That was the first wisdom. Second station, he was the righteous servant. He was afraid, like when he came across this youth, he was afraid that this youth, like he just knew that this youth would grow up to give his parents a very hard time and tired them, and he'd be an unrighteous person. So he prayed to God and got rid of something and prayed to God that may God replace this boy with something better. So then we come to the third station, right? And the third station is that the reason he restored the wall is because beneath that wall, he had to make sure it stays as a guard and a protection and a strong fortress for the treasure that is beneath that wall.
Yeah, there's this treasure hidden, like belongs to these two orphans.
Exactly, these two orphans. So now, yes, he explains the story. Why does Abu Sadiq begin telling us the story of the righteous servant again in his episode? He's foreshadowing something. So he wants the viewers, and we want the viewers for our show, that is, to remember that this is how the story goes, because later it'll make sense.
If you look at this, I was just thinking while you were explaining the story, like as Moses is walking there, and imagine it's not like just three separate stories happening like one after the other. It's like he's in a journey. It's a long way. They're walking, they're talking. And imagine
that's happened.
Yeah, exactly. So imagine like you're walking with someone and you casually just ask, "Oh, hey, why'd you do that? Oh, hey, why'd you?" Like it's a casual chit chat. You're talking sometimes. So I'm thinking about this, especially the last one.
Yeah,
because it's like, oh, we could have gotten money for this. Come on, what's going on?
Yeah, it wasn't so deep for him, you know. It was like it seems something very small from him, and that's a lot of mistakes people make, and we learned that from the past prophets and messengers and their companions. Like what you may see, it's in the Quran actually. It kind of blatantly tells you what you may perceive as something small is actually quite big in the eyes of God.
So for God, this was something really big that you're questioning in that way. When you've said clearly you're not going to question it, and you're asking why. Like when the angels ask God, "Oh, why are you choosing Adam? He's gonna
commit bloodshed."
Commit bloodshed. It's not just a question. It has a lot of meaning behind it.
Yeah, and also it's because of Moses' station. You see, because he's an Ulul Azm prophet, it was not befitting of him to speak and question in such a manner, especially with the level he was at.
Yeah. Exactly. So his journey was complete with the righteous servant, and he's extremely ashamed, basically, of all of these objections that he's made. So in this story, there's certain characters. Okay, so we know that we have Moses, we have the righteous servant, and we have the youth of Moses. We also have the ship and the people of the ship.
Yeah.
We have the fish. We have the diseased dog.
Yes.
We have the boy who was killed and his parents. And we have the new child the boy was traded with. And the city of the unpleasant people, and the wall that belonged to the orphans, and the orphans, which were two boys who were orphans, and their father who placed the treasure in there. So these are all like the separate characters.
So people need to
of the
like
story,
basically put in their minds that there's these characters that exist.
Because they've been kind of like, faceless, nameless characters, ever since people have been reading this story. So in the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, we find that this story that is in the Quran, parts of the identities of the characters or clues about who they are given to us, right? So the youth of Moses is revealed in a Sunni hadith, and also a Shia hadith as being Joshua, son of Nun. And the Torah also states that the successor companion and the student, one of the most loyal and obedient individuals to Moses, is a youth during the prophethood of Moses, and this is Joshua, son of Nun. So it's clearly the youth of Moses is Joshua. So basically, Aba Al-Sadiq, from whom is peace, when he's explaining this, he's stating basically when we're trying to unlock the different characters, the different aspects of the story, trying to figure out where it was the righteous servant took Moses, what was the nature of the journey, who was this righteous servant?
Yeah, because he's such a mysterious character, like many narrations, they talk about him as the green man. They have many names and titles for him.
Yeah, so some narrations, they state that the righteous servant is the character known in Islam as Al-Qadr. So translate to the green one. So according to narrations, he is a particular prophet, a companion of Dhul Qarnayn. And he accompanies him on his, night journey, his journey into space, basically. So Al-Qadr is a character who he appears a lot in the narrations of Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, and he is the one who found the tree of life that Dhul Qarnayn was looking for, and he actually drank from that fountain of life that was around the tree of life, and this ended up prolonging his life, and according to narrations from Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, he was actually he basically drank from the fountain of life in order to kind of like provide a proof or like an archetype that this can happen basically for the people of the future who would deny the extremely long life of Imam Mahdi, the 12th Imam. And there are some narrations that actually state he remained alive until this very day, and some basically just that he lived a very long life.
Yeah.
It's interesting because when you look at these characters, many Muslims know this. They know that that's Joshua, that youth is Joshua, and that the righteous servant is Al-Khidr, right?
It's very well known.
It's well known. But what Aba Al-Sadiq does is he starts revealing other characters as well, and he goes into who those other characters are, and not so many
this
people.
This is something that has never been revealed before, right?
For me, I've never heard it before.
So brace yourselves.
Yeah. So, you know, there are actually narrations that say something really interesting, and the Ahlul Bayt in those narrations, they say that Al-Khidr, he actually used to visit them. He used to visit them, but they wouldn't recognize who he was. They couldn't see him. They could only hear him. So this is really interesting. And then there are other narrations that say that this man is actually Jeremiah. So now we find out based on this information that the righteous servant that Moses was speaking with and meeting was actually Jeremiah, the green one.
Yeah.
So now this man,
finally the Torah is part of the story.
Yeah.
So now we find out, but Jeremiah he lived before Moses, right? So how would he be visiting
Moses,
the Ahlul Bayt?
Yeah, it's true. Jeremiah, he came like many years after Moses, and like how would he have known?
Oh, before, after Moses, my bad. So we know now that there's a time traveling component to this story. There's some supernatural things happening. So we know that Jeremiah actually went back in time to meet Moses, but also would visit the Ahlul Bayt in the future.
This is huge. When Aba Al-Sadiq revealed this, I was like, wow.
And there's another narration that says that he would visit Elias every single year. So we see now that Jeremiah, this righteous servant, was traveling through time.
Meeting these prophets and imams.
Exactly, meeting all of these characters in different times. So now, naturally, this completely changes the story and the possibilities of this journey that he went on with Moses and this youth.
Yeah. And it just shows how many secrets the Quran is hiding. And the only one that can reveal it is someone, and unlock them is someone like the Qa'im from his peace. He's the only one who would be able to do that and bring so much awe into it.
Yeah, like he wants people to think about it. Like you mentioned the narrations of Al Bayt. He's like, think about it. How did the Imams, and look, Sunnis believe Al-Khidr has such a long life, and majority actually believe he lives till now. So the concept, didn't they ever wonder, what is he doing? What did he do all those years? Was he just sitting in a cave or under a tree waiting for something to happen? Like, and when the narrations state that people have met him or heard him, like, couldn't they put it, they can't. You can't put it together because it was such a hidden matter.
Exactly.
For the time,
because I don't have the divine knowledge, of the prophets and the messengers. That's what differentiates between a messenger of God with the Holy Spirit and somebody who doesn't have the Holy Spirit and is actually evil and Allah doesn't enforce him with the divine knowledge because of what they would do with it, because you see these scholars, these people who claim that they're the most knowledgeable. They go in these books and they guess and make, guesses about what they mean with a political agenda that only has to do with something that they want to get out of this world, and they don't care about their hereafter. So, anyway, so we see this theory. If we take it even further, let's look at the fish.
Yeah,
this is very important because it's the only other fish that we ever see in the well-known stories is one of them, right? We only see one obedient fish that actually does something, obeys Allah, and in punishing prophet, a messenger who was disobedient to God. And that, so we see this fish, coming to life, going into the sea. Okay. And then there's another one that actually swallows a prophet. So now we see the parallel. That the only obedient fish that we see is in the story of Jonah, where Jonah, he disobeys God, and the fish obeys God by swallowing him. So this is the parallel of the two stories that makes perfect sense. That the prophet, that the righteous servant, and Moses would go, travel through time. It's so
and
interesting.
the fish parallel is huge, because it's like, how did that happen? Like, how did they lose something, and how was it so obedient more than its prophet? And then all of a sudden, the only other creature that has the same level of obedience and happens to be a sea creature is the fish of Jonah.
Right now we just need to go into the story of fish and the Jonah and the fish, right? Just to understand what actually happened and see the similarities. Before we go into the story of Prophet Jonah, I want to remind our viewers that you can call at any time. We have a phone number there written on the screen. You can call us via Telegram or WhatsApp, and we're here to answer your questions. So let's go back to the story of Jonah, right? He was trying to escape God. Okay, so he there's this whole backstory where the punishment didn't happen, and he was like, "What's going on? Why didn't the punishment come?" People are now questioning my contact, my prophet, and my contact with God. So he just abandoned his mission. He escaped from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he found a ship in his while he was escaping. And this ship, interestingly enough, is also ran by poor people. And he goes into the ship, and he as well goes down to the bottom deck. And in the bottom deck of the ship, he actually falls asleep. Just like, and here Aba Al-Sadiq draws the parallels, just like Joshua and Moses, peace be upon them, fell asleep where the fish escaped. Now, Jonah, he falls asleep also, but inside the ship, while he's trying to hide from God, right? And the narrations, they do mention that the righteous servant and Moses entered the lower deck, just like Jonah did. And here in these narrations, it's mentioned that the righteous servant is attempting or thinking to make a hole in the ship. And then the hadiths mentioned that Moses objects, and because the poor people will drown, just like we said before, right? So here Aba Al-Sadiq is telling us from his piece that the righteous servant and Moses went to the same ship that Jonah was in. And this is so like, wow. And he also reveals that the fish that Moses had and that escaped is the same fish that swallowed Jonah. This is huge, and the similarities are there. It's like it's the same story, really.
It's the same. It shows that it was that at the time, it was Jeremiah and Moses that were there in the story of Jonah.
Subhanallah,
it's insane.
And so the righteous servant, what does he do? Even though that the people on the ship were innocent, or you could think that they're innocent, there is a wisdom. God has a wisdom behind it. And there was actually an act of mercy that he made that hole to save the people, like you said, because there was a king behind them who was trying to seize their ship. So he was saving them from losing out on this asset that they had, this ship. Okay, so that's the first station. And so the next station, Aba Al-Sadiq goes into it too. Now, in this station, let's go back to it. What happens? They find a boy, okay? And here, the righteous servant kills him, right? And in the Quran, it mentions that he was killed because he was unrighteous. But also the Quran mentions that the parents were righteous. And so the righteous servant wanted Allah to trade the unrighteous son to a righteous child. Okay? And the narrations from Ahl Bayt, they state that actually this child, this boy, gets traded for a girl.
It's insane.
Okay? So who then gives birth to a prophet? Now we're talking about the righteous servant and the boy, right?
Yeah.
And this is what the narrations state. Now let's go to the Quran and see where in the Quran is it stated that there were righteous parents that were told that they would they were expecting a boy. They were told they were had to have a boy, but they actually had a girl.
Yeah.
Who was it? It was the parents of Mary.
Yes.
Imran, right, thought that he would get a boy.
Yes.
Or Joachim, he thought he was going to get a boy, and yet he got a girl, right? And it was Mary.
Yeah.
And from Mary
came
a prophet,
the Messiah.
the Messiah.
Yeah.
And the Pharisees used to say what? The Pharisees used to accuse Mary. They used to say to her, why did you commit such an act, O sister of Aaron?
Yes.
This is something that has exist in the Quran, and people don't understand. How can she be? How can Mary be the sister of Aaron?
So clearly she has a brother.
So clearly she has a brother, right? And this brother is called Aaron. And it's also mentioned, they also told Mary, your father was not unrighteous and your mother wasn't a loose woman. She wasn't a bad woman.
Yeah.
So here, once again, the Quran is stating that the parents were righteous.
Yes.
And so now we know that this boy who was with that the righteous servant killed had parents that were righteous.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he
got
replaced with a girl.
Yes.
And here's the same thing. We find out that Mary's parents were righteous and they were supposed to have a boy, but they got a girl instead.
Yeah, because they were the God promised them that he would replace the child that the righteous servant killed with another one.
Yes.
So they were expecting a boy and they received a girl.
But then there was this Aaron as well, right?
Yeah.
So it shows that there was a boy who was Aaron.
Basically,
and then
God's
there was
promise
Mary.
was true.
Yeah.
They did get a boy.
Yeah.
They did get a boy, and the boy happened. His name was Aaron.
Yeah.
And then he is now classed as the brother of Mary.
Yeah.
But when the righteous servant came across him, he knew that this boy is unrighteous and he's not. He wasn't fitting for his parents. So he asked God, please trade him for something better. And God then gave a girl, which ended up being Mary. Then this is where the Messiah came from. So you see how important this story is. The righteous servant's act led to the Messiah being born.
But another thing
That's insane.
another thing that's also really important here is that the Quran actually mentions that Aaron exists, right? So it says the mother, what does she say in the Quran? She says, God, I have given birth to her, and she's female, about Mary. And the female is not like the male. The female which I gave birth to is not like the male I had.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's
this
what
is
she
a
meant.
very big clue.
Yeah, like the Aaron, the boy I had. It's not like the boy I have. It's the boy I had. It's Aaron.
So
I thought
she
I was
had-
I thought I was gonna get a replacement of Aaron, and it was supposed to be a boy, but instead came a girl.
Yeah.
You know.
That's scary, man.
Yeah.
It's a scary. It's deep.
It is.
It just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So what did we get from this? We got that the righteous servant and Moses, as you said, were time traveling. They were time travelers. The righteous servant is a time traveler. He can go from back and forth as ever he wills, and he just felt that these three these three events they're very important. We don't know the importance yet, but they were very important for him to take Moses on a journey to teach him. You were saying?
And you know, there's also this important point based on the narrations that when Jeremiah was time traveling between to see Muhammad and the family of Muhammad, peace be upon them, that they weren't able to see him.
Yeah.
So they could only hear his voice. So that's also interesting to know that maybe we can make the assumption that at the time of the journey of Moses and the righteous servant, Moses couldn't actually see him and he could only hear his voice.
Yeah, no.
That could be something you could think about, right?
Yeah, for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
So then now the I was like goes into the third station, like the characters of the third station and what it really meant, And this is the final station. This is when Moses had his final objection. This is where the righteous servant was like, oh, it's over, like he objected to this one. And this was the objection where he really truly shouldn't have. And he finds out later why he shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So I was like reveals that the parallels of, okay, now we have the city and then we have these two orphans, right? And it's mentioned in the verses that the treasure that is underneath this wall will be given to these orphans when they come of strength, when they reach a maturity, like they come of strength and a maturity. And then it's explained that the city is unrighteous, right? So then he finds out that actually the city that's unrighteous is the city that Moses and Aaron were in, right? And Moses and Aaron, they were raised as orphans. Moses, he was placed in a basket. He didn't have his mother. He didn't have his father. Aaron the same. Moses actually grew up in the house of Pharaoh. He had all this story going on. And actually the treasure that was meant underneath the wall was for Moses and Aaron. When Aba Al-Sadiq actually gave the revelation that the two orphans that the righteous servant was trying to safeguard was Moses and Aaron, that when they grow up and they have strength, meaning that when Moses is able, the strength of the Holy Spirit, the maturity of like prophethood, that treasure will return to them.
And this was really like, I don't know, in a way like the most profound revelation from this episode, because it's like you could be questioning what God is saying to you and like all he's doing is protecting your treasure, like all he's doing is safeguarding your own livelihood.
Exactly.
But it could look in a way that you don't perceive to be right, and this is just shows the importance of not questioning God and just
for sure. But that's why you see that the final the righteous servant, he ends the journey there, because where Moses, the objection Moses had, why was it such a huge objection? It was such a huge objection because he objected against his own livelihood. He objected against his own, it was his own benefit. The righteous servant was doing it for him,
and that's why you see, you should never question your hujjah, your imam, the man sent from God, because he knows what he's doing and everything he's doing is for your benefit.
Exactly. We don't know what's like good for us in the long run. We don't understand. We can't see all the things that the hujjah can see, basically, like the unseen things that he knows about. So that's why his direction is so important, because we just don't have that ability that he does.
And so I mean, God really humbled Moses in that.
No, he really did.
He really destroyed the ego completely, and for some people it would be so harsh, why would he go so far? But the thing is that it was necessary because of the love that he had for Moses. Because if he had, if he had allowed that ego to grow in his heart, he would have been destroyed.
He would have lost it.
So, but then he also showed and taught Moses just how much that he loved him, and that even though the righteous servant was more knowledgeable than him, it was only for his benefit, and it showed him how much more he can grow to.
Exactly.
You could be like this righteous servant,
So when I was came forth with this amazing, huge revelations that only the Mahdi can come forth, and look, as he just fulfilled the hadith, the narrations of the Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. And then he also continues and says that we'll find, he will in the future actually discuss why the righteous servant chose these specific timelines. What's this connection between Jesus and Jonah? Why these two? Why did he? What's that treasure, that was hidden beneath the wall? Many people naturally would have so many of these questions, right? And I was has those answers, and in due time, God willing, they will come forth.
It's so beautiful how Aba Al-Sadiq with this story has taught us so much. He has many times told us this story, and the beginning of it, he used to tell us how we should always just follow God and never question him, because there's so much hidden behind what he does and the messenger of God. There's so much, and whatever he does, don't think it's wrong or bad because there's something behind it. And recently, Aba Sadiq revealed something else from this story, and he revealed the key that time travel does exist, and it does exist in the Quran, right? And that it happened. Moses experienced it, peace be upon him. And he is now telling us, Aba Sadiq from his peace is now telling us that there's so much more from the story that we can learn, and so much more that he can reveal. And this is such a beautiful, but maybe a disturbing truth for many people. And I am happy that I'm able to sit here with you and share this knowledge with the people and the viewers, and share Aba Sadiq's words from his peace. And I hope that we can continue to do so in the next episode. So we'll stop here, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.